Hello everybody and welcome to today's Introduction to Sage HR demonstration webinar. My name's Dan and I'll be taking you through today's session. Now this webinar is based upon the most current version of Sage HR, and future development would mean that the content is subject to change. Now during the session we'll be covering why we're here and what's going on, how Sage HR can help, and how to get started and what the next steps are. So some introduction and context. Well, the world of work is transforming as we know it, and this means that businesses have to rethink how they manage and engage their employees. During this demonstration, I'm going to show you how Sage HR can help you manage your people, your data, and your processes easily so that you can manage on your business. So what's going on right now? Well, as we mentioned, the world of work is very challenging at the moment. Especially recently, things have become increasingly complex and changed how we think and work. The need to manage and engage a remote workforce and fluctuating capacity levels, track things like absence, has put increased pressure on businesses. So what could you do as an employer to help? Well, make work life easier for your employees and show them how you're there to support them, especially in the current climate. Maybe you want to create meaningful and amazing experiences for your employees at work and ease the burden of managing your people processes. You could create more automated and efficient ways of working across the employee journey so that you can focus on your business and achieve better productivity with whatever you've got. We're going to demonstrate how the key ways in which Sage HR can help you navigate those challenges. So what do our customers want from an HR solution? On screen, you should see a few quotes come up from some of our recent customers that include things like wanting to empower their staff to be more responsible, maybe streamline their onboarding process and become paperless, making staff information more visible to managers and directors, and of course, comply with GDPR. So how can Sage HR help? Well, it's a cloud-native, scalable, and easy-to-use solution designed for all sizes of companies from small to large. It'll provide a single employee database or single source of truth that should help you set up the HR basics. With employee self-service, you'll be able to empower your employees, which in turn should reduce the number of employee queries and, of course, HR admin processes. Remote workforce management will allow you to manage your workforce remotely, wherever they are and whatever you need them to do. Communication and collaboration, so staying connected to your workforce and keeping them engaged. And finally, you'll be able to use dedicated reporting to help better understand your business and people performance. Now, you will get the core HR features and the leave management module as standard, but as you can see on screen, there are additional modules that you can add on. Now, these include a performance module, an expenses module, separate timesheet and shift scheduling modules, and also a recruitment module. So in this session, I'm going to take you through the two standard modules in a bit more depth, and then give you a brief overview on those additional 5 modules. So firstly, what are the key features of core HR? Well, we've got tasks. So you'll be able to quickly update colleagues on tasks that need to be done and check on tasks that have been completed. Each employee will be able to manage their own dashboard to view tasks that are outstanding and see things like any upcoming time off. Each employee, of course, has their own profile where you'll be able to view and edit their details. And you'll have a company section to view your company structure and employee directory. The documents part of Sage HR will allow you to upload and share and view documents. You can use trackable documents to set up automated reminders for any document that has an expiry date. Or you'll be able to create signable documents for your employees to put a signature on for things like contracts or perhaps a change of terms or conditions. Reporting allows you to get various reports that you need quickly, as well as additional reports based upon the modules that you might take out. And recipes helps you create custom workflows that are automated after a specific action's made in the system. You'll also have announcements to compose internal company update posts that employees can react with emojis or comments. Assets allows you to manage and keep track of your asset inventory. Compensation will help you keep track of employees' current and historical salaries. And you can use training to enter training information. You can see any upcoming training due dates, and what training is being completed by people, and also add attachments such as certificates. Onboarding and offboarding allows you to set up general onboarding workflows or perhaps customize one based upon an employee's team or department or position, and that will help with the new starter process or for offboarding for people leaving the business. And finally, the mobile app. So the app's the perfect tool to use Sage HR on the go. Employees will be able to use it for things such as keeping up to date with real-time leave allowances, requesting time off, all from the palm of their hand. And if you're using things like the expenses module, you'll also be able to upload expenses from the app as well. So we're going to take a quick look and go through a short demonstration of those core features. And as I open up Sage HR on screen, the first thing that you can see is the dashboard. So we've got a number of widgets on here, and the main one that you'll find people will use will be the My Tasks widget, which allows them to see any outstanding tasks that need to be completed or done by a particular date. They'll be able to see things like any upcoming time off, check on things like live leave allowances, and if you're using things like the performance module, any upcoming meetings or outstanding goals. Now you can see that I have all of the modules turned on, but with Core HR down the left-hand side, you'll only see things like dashboard, announcements, and then further down the company section, the document storage tool, and reports. And we're going to go through these each one at a time in a bit more depth. But the first one that we'll take a look at, if I scroll right way back up the top, is announcements. So announcements is where you can compose and read these company updates. And on screen, you'll see I've got a couple there. Perhaps it's one about an upcoming party, or I've got one for a new office opening. So your employees will be able to log in, open them up by clicking on them. They can see any imagery, see any text information that you've written. They can react with emojis, leave any comments. And here on the right, you as the admin can track who's viewed your announcement and when. To obviously create a new announcement, as an admin, just click Add Announcement and fill in the screen. A bit further down the left-hand side, we've got your company directory. So from here, you'll see all your employees' profiles. Each employee in the company has their own tile. You can also see your org chart. Now this is a bit like having a family tree, where we can scroll out, drag along, and then scroll back in to see a particular branch of the company and who reports directly into who. We also have a Teams tab at the top left there to view our team structure. We can see who manages our teams, which employees are in which teams, and if an employee moves from one team to another, it's easy enough just to drag them across. But if we go back to the directory, you'll notice in the top right, there's a couple of different ways that we can add new starters onto the system. If you happen to have all of your employee information in an Excel spreadsheet, the best option might be to click Import, where we can download your own template. Those templates have instructions on them about which fields are mandatory, how to enter the information. And once you've filled it in and saved it, you can browse to wherever you've saved it, click Import, and that'll create a record for everybody on the spreadsheet. Obviously, the other option in the top right is just to click Add, and this will be used for adding one person at a time, where you simply just fill in the information on screen and go through the wizard. To get into an employee's profile, we can either search for their name up the top left, or if you're in the directory already, simply click on their tile. And we get a whole host of new tabs down the left-hand side in this grey bar. And all of this information is relating to the employee's record that we're in at the moment. So we'll go through the tabs that are relevant with core HR. The first one is obviously the employee tab. In here we can see work-related information such as their job title, their start date, their working pattern or employment status, who their manager is, and which team they're in. Underneath that, we have the personal tab. This contains personal information like date of birth, contact details, address, and this tab is actually a self-service tab, so your employees will be able to log in and update their details themselves. We then have the Notes tab. Now the Notes tab is only visible and accessible by admin and managers, so if the employee was to log in themselves, they wouldn't even know this was here, and it's used for adding detailed notes or uploading attachments that we would not want to share with the employee. So all you need to do to add that is just click Add New, and again, fill in the comments, uploading attachments, and click Save. The next one down is our Documents function. In here, we can add new documents. We can categorize them into different folders. You can see I've got a couple on here now. We can see what was shared, when it was shared, who with, and we can view them from this option on the right. We've also got the Create Signable Document function. So if we need a digital signature on a bit of paper, we can browse to a document here, or perhaps use the drop-down menu to select something we've already uploaded previously. And then we can wait just a couple of moments for this to pass authorization and give us our green continue button in the bottom right. There we go. And then we're presented with a couple of options. One option would be if we need more than one signature on the same bit of paper, or the other option if we need one or multiple people to sign a copy or a version of that document. Each document would then be assigned to the relevant person's record with just their signature on it. So we'll select which employee we want to sign it, click continue, and then we can see the document. Now we can't change the content of the document in any way. We're just looking to drag these boxes on the right over. Perhaps it's a signature box. We've also got initials or date boxes. And once you're happy with where they're sitting, you can click continue, add a little email message if you wish that goes out to the employee, enter the date that they need to sign this by, and then click send. They'd get an email sent out to them. They'd also get a task on their dashboard, and they can log in and they can either draw their signature, upload it, or type it in. That document then gets attached to their record in a subfolder and can be viewed at a later date. Moving down the list here, our next core function is the assets. And again, this is used to track which assets this particular employee has been allocated. So in here, we can see that Annie has been allocated a phone. We can see the details, the model, an internal tag number, when it was given out. And obviously, if Annie leaves, we can return that and say when she returned it. To add an asset to an employee, we can click Give Asset up the top and pick from a predetermined list set up in the settings area. We then move down to our training function. In the employee's record, it's broken up into two sections. So we've got any upcoming and outstanding training and any training previously completed. To add new training, click Add New. We can give it to one or multiple people, say the what, the when, the where. If there was a cost, we can track that and see how much money we're spending on training. And then once the training's been completed, we can come in here, click Complete, upload any certificates potentially, and that would then transfer to the completed list so that we can easily see on a quick level what training they've done when they did it. We then move down to our next self-service feature, which is the Emergency Contacts tab. Here we can see any number of emergency contacts, their details, their relationship, their address. And again, if we add these in, which as I mentioned can be done by the employee as well, it's just a case of filling in the screen. We have our tasks function, and this is used just to allocate any ad hoc task to any employee. We can again see any outstanding tasks that still need to be completed, any previous tasks. And again, if you click Add Task, these can be assigned to one person or multiple people at a time. And interestingly, we can also say to notify ourselves when the employee has actually come in and clicked Complete once they've done that task. We have onboarding. Now, I will be covering this in a bit more detail later on, but this will be used in a similar way to tasks, but specifically for those starter checklist items that need to be done for new employees. And if it was offboarding, we can also do that for our leavers. The final tab that we have in employees records relating to core HR is our compensation tab. And this is used for tracking current and historical salaries. So again, I can add compensation. I get presented with a nice little line graph here so that it's dead easy to see when an employee's salary changed, what it changed from and to, and up the top, you'll be able to enter reasons as to why that changed. Now, I mentioned it briefly, but we do also have a reports function. So as an admin, you'll be able to log in and on the very left-hand side, scroll right the way down to reports. And I'll show you a few in here. So we've obviously got the HR dashboard, which just shows you nice snapshot information of things like employee turnover, headcount, perhaps it's age reporting, length of service reporting. So we can see the number of employees who've worked for in the last 1 to 3 years and get accurate information down the right. As we come down the reporting options, we have employee data reporting. So this is where we can see things like our full asset list, any outstanding training, any outstanding tasks, emergency contact lists, but probably the nicest function in here is the custom reports option. So using custom reports, you can build your own report consisting of any fields in the employee records. All you need to do is click New, give the report a name, and you're presented with a list of fields. So these fields relate to information in the employees tabs, and every item that you tick will end up being a new column on your report. Down the bottom of the list, you're also presented with custom fields. Now, these are additional boxes that you've created, and I'll be showing you how to add these in just a moment. But you can also add filters to filter out by particular teams and sorts, whether that be by name or position. Once you save the report, you simply click play to run it. That will give you the information on screen. And again, that can be exported into Excel. So a good level of customization to pull out any data you like from those employee fields within their record. Now, I said I'd come back to onboarding and offboarding. So to access that and set those tasks up, we're just going to go up to the settings area. Now, this settings area can only be accessed by admin. So if we click on that, we're presented with a new list of tasks in a new gray bar. And this is where you'll spend the majority of your time setting up the back end of all of the features you've enabled. So if we come down to the employee data option, the first part I'm going to look at is onboarding and offboarding. So actually I'll skip down to onboarding and click tasks. So here I've created a number of tasks. We've got things like asking a manager to do an induction, asking an employee to fill in their emergency contacts tab, maybe asking the payroll department to add them to the payroll program. So you'll click Add Task, and it's about assigning these tasks to anybody in the company to go out at any time after the employee's start date. And once allocated, they'll trigger at the relevant time, asking the relevant person to do a job and cross it off the starter checklist. Similarly, once you've entered a leave date into a person's record, you'll be able to do the same thing for offboarding tasks. So jobs that need to be done when someone leaves the company, such as asking a manager to hold an exit meeting or sending a message to the employee asking them to return any assets or equipment. Now, the custom fields option, so the ability to create your own boxes in Sage HR, is accessed from settings and employee data, and then custom fields. So classic examples are things like PPS number. We don't provide a box for that, so you'll need to create your own. And any other information that if you can't find a box for it, you'll need to enter it into here. So you'll click Add New, enter a name for it. Now, in terms of the types of boxes that we can give you text fields, we can give slightly larger text areas, drop-down menus that you customize the options to, or even date boxes. You can decide things like whether it's something you want to fill in when you add new people on the system, whether it's something you want to show to the employee and let their manager edit, or show to their manager and let them edit. Once you click Add, you can either allocate that to everybody in the company or just certain employees, and that will then be visible from, in this case, the personal tab of their employee record. The last little part of core that we're going to take a look at is the recipes option. And this was the part about creating automated workflows, so automated tasks or emails that can get sent out based upon an event happening in your company. So you can see I've set up a couple here. I've got one for change of address, so if I want to edit that or look at the details, I just click on it. And I can see that I've said that when an employee logs in and changes their address, I'd like to send an email to a specific person in the company, which in this case happens to be myself. And then I dictate what the email will say. So I've said that, hi Dan, this employee has changed their address from this to that. And we've done that using these variables, which will basically mail merge the details of the relevant person into the text. To create new recipes, again, just click Add Recipe at the top. Give it a name, and then it's all about the first two drop-downs. So perhaps you want to send emails out every time it's someone's anniversary saying congratulations for another year at the company. Maybe you want to do that every year or just the big years, the big milestones. We've got those changed fields notifications. So if anyone changes a field in an employee record, tell us. And a really handy one that people tend to like is for the leave management module. When an employee returns from time off, send email to perhaps their manager asking them to do a return to work meeting, but only if that time off was, say, sickness. Again, underneath you dictate the content of the email. So those are our core functions. The next part that we're going to take a little look at is the leave management module. So you can use the leave management module in Sage HR to handle any time off requests and approve those digitally, whether that be via the browser or even the mobile app. And you can then track them in the shared calendars and reports. So using the shared calendars, multiple users will be able to get in and see who else is off in their team at the same time as them. And then that will allow your people to request leave, check their holiday balances, and see who's away anytime, anywhere. So again, let's jump back into the Sage HR system and take a little look at that. And whilst we're staying in the main settings area, I'm going to come up to where we set this up called time off and then policies. And you can create a policy for pretty much anything that you'd like to mark on the calendar. So you can see I've got some here for holiday. Some of them are in days, some of them are in hours. I've got things like sick, dependency leave, appointments, toil. So whatever you'd like to mark on a calendar, you can create those for. You're not limited as to how many you do. When you click Add New Policy or just go into the settings of an existing policy, the windows are the same. And it's just a case of running down the different settings. So we can say whether we want to allocate in days or hours. We set our holiday year reset date, whether we want to base it on something called the calendar settings or perhaps their working pattern. And if we move down into some of the other settings, if we take a look through some of the conditions, we've got things like allowing them to do full days or just half days, setting specific time spans, not allowing them to take more than their allowance, certain limitations like whether they need to give you a certain amount of notice before a holiday, or whether every holiday must be a minimum or maximum length of time. In the allowance section, we can apply things like a pro rata if someone joins halfway through the year or leaves halfway through the year. And we can enable things like extra days be added based upon their length of service. So once they hit their 5-year anniversary, we might want to add on an additional 2 days of holiday entitlement. So you'll sort of gently read through all the settings, tick the ones that apply to that type of leave and the people who you're going to give it to, and that'll allow the employees to actually then start requesting that type of leave. So we'll take a look at requesting leave in just a moment, but whilst we're in the settings area, you'll also be able to override and manually amend individuals' allowances on a person-by-person basis. In the time off approvers section, you can dictate who approves whose time off, whether it's the admin, the person's manager, the person's team manager, or someone specific that we enable. We also have automated reports. So if perhaps you'd like an automated holiday report that gets sent out at the beginning of every month. So here I've said, send the time off report about the current month at the start of every month, about everyone, all policies, and this will just automatically send to my email and allow me to see who is off during that month so that I can forecast allocation of working hours and who's working where and how many people I need to have in. So in terms of actually requesting time off and checking on their balances, one place that the employees will be able to do it is from their dashboard. So we can see any upcoming time off. We can see our outstanding balances. If I want to request time off, I can do that from here. I could do that from quick links up the top there where I click on the plus button and then new time off, or better still, we can apply for that leave via the mobile app. If we click on new time off, now, because I'm an admin or a manager, I get to pick that I can do these requests on behalf of other people. If I was an employee, I wouldn't get that option, but I can select what I would like off. I get a nice little snapshot there of my remaining balance. I can pick a single day, whether that's all day or part day, a multi-date absence, and then submit. Once that's submitted, that'll go off to my approver. You can see that I've got one here from Annie as I'm approving her holiday. So I would get an email, but I also get a task on my dashboard. Now I can approve or decline that straight away. Or if I want to see a bit more detail, we can click on the little eye logo and I can see things like their remaining balance and also a handy little view of anyone else in the leadership team who has time off at the same time as Annie's request. If it's inappropriate, I can decline it. If I'm happy, I can click approve and that'll update Annie's balance. Employees will also be able to go into their own record where they have their own time off tab within their record. They can see their balances changing. They can see that in a table format. Who approves their time off, and then a time off history. So this is like your audit trail of everything historically that's either been requested and declined, cancelled, or approved. From an admin point of view, you'll also be able to report on absences. So from the main report section on the very left-hand side, we can come down to time off reports. We can see things like a time off status report. Now this will be a handy one to show me how many days people have used and have remaining. There we go. Allowance and used. If I scroll down, I've also got available or remaining. We can see a list of all holidays, anything outstanding approval. We've got Bradford factor reporting, individual total allowances, and again, a time off ledger there. So loads of reports to help with time off. And that is our time off module. So the next part that we're going to look at, the performance module. Now there are a number of parts within the performance module, starting with goals. So your employees will be able to set aspirational goals that challenge your workforce, and that'll help them keep track of progress and align team efforts with your company vision. You have one-to-one meetings. So with convenient one-to-one meeting scheduling, managers can work on the roadblocks, holding talent back, and pave the way for employees to rise up the ladder. There's feedback or 360 feedback, and this helps eliminate suspicions of bias by allowing employees to paint a more holistic view of their own performance, and you can have inputs from their peers, their managers and subordinates, and that can be gathered transparently throughout the course of the year. Similarly, you've got surveys, and Sage HR surveys can be set up to be anonymous. They can be filled out on the mobile devices via the app, and that will help collect employee sentiment to help gauge the satisfaction and engagement of your staff. Additionally, you'll have periodically and automated pulse surveys, which allow you to gather feedback from your employees to identify areas in the business that may need improvement. Moving on, we've also got quick feedback. So quick feedback lets employees seek informed opinions of the people they trust, or give quick praise to anyone in the company with just a couple of clicks. There's development goals, so people can create development goal templates and development methods that will help them and their career development, and that will allow them to add and edit their own things if they wish and track the progress of any of those development goals. You'll have competencies, and you can use competencies to allow you to store and manage and collect feedback on all the related knowledge, skills, and abilities that form a person's job role. So again, let's jump back into the program and take a little look through those. So down the very left-hand toolbar, you can see I have all the performance features enabled, from goals right the way down to surveys. And actually, we'll start at the top there with one-to-ones. So one-to-ones can be used to book meetings between you and your manager. From a manager point of view, we can see any outstanding meetings that haven't actually been booked yet, anything in the future, any meetings that are awaiting sign-off, and any previous meetings that have previously been completed. To schedule a meeting, you can either go to the top or select down the right-hand side, where you'll be able to select a predefined meeting template that includes certain parts of the performance module that have been used elsewhere. We can select the when and the where, and then send that out. Each person will receive a calendar invite or an attachment calendar invite via email, and that can be saved into Outlook, for example. And ahead of the meeting, you'll be able to go into those from here. Again, they're accessible from the employee's records, and we can start talking through the different sections of an employee's progress. If we move down to goals, again, as a manager, I get a slightly different view. I can view my employee goals, my goals, any team goals or company goals, and we can set those from here as well. To set them, click Add Goal, assign them to our employees, and we can enter things like a goal name, a goal date range, and then later we'll be asked to assign our KPIs and metrics, and then they'll be allocated to the employees. The employee can then come in throughout the course of the date range, and if we go into a pre-existing goal here, it's just a case of crossing these off as they've been completed or updating the progress as you go along. You can add comments, initiatives on how you're going to complete those goals, and any commentary down the bottom, as well as attachments if you've got any evidence that you'd like to prove. Those goals can then be dragged into a one-to-one automatically to be discussed throughout the course of the year or however often you hold your meetings. We then have development goals from the left-hand side, again more focused on personal career development. But as a manager, I can see all my employees' goals. I can see what they're working on between whatever date range, and I can also track the progress very quickly. If I wanted to see a bit more information, so we can see here, Bev is working on project management, and it would be up to Bev to come in throughout the course of the date range, update the progress, add any commentary, and of course, any attachments. Again, those development goals will then be pulled into a one-to-one meeting if you so wish. We have competencies, which is about listing the skills and behaviours that are required in a person's role. They can be given out to a whole team at a time, or a whole job role at a time, or of course, if we go into a person's record, they can be assigned there. So as an example, if I was to go into Annie's record and down to Annie's competencies, you can see I've added leadership as an expected behaviour or skill that Annie should have. Annie can come into it and add any commentary or any attachments, which again can be pulled into a one-to-one meeting. We then have 360 feedback. So again, this is the building of questionnaires that can be sent out to anybody in the company to be filled in about anybody in the company. If I go to my drafts and go and have a look at one I created earlier, we can see that down the left, I've asked loads of different questions. And in terms of what types of questions, we can have star rating questions, multi-choice questions that we define the answers to, and comment questions. These will then be sent out, filled in by the employees, and then attached to the record of the person that they're about. They can be filled in by the person themselves if we're asking them what they believe they've done, how their peers rate them, their subordinates, their manager, anybody in the company. If we're waiting on people to fill them in, we can also go in there and send a nudge to people to remind them they need to fill that in. And then we can start looking at the reporting of those things. So if we go into any of the 360 feedback that's been completed, look at a report, we'll be able to see what they scored themselves in the form of a diagram, bar charts, rating scales, see how they rank themselves, how others rank them, and obviously any commentary that was added, which of course is obviously anonymous. These feedback results are then saved to the employee's record, can later be decided to be shared with the employee as that's not a default option, and then again pulled into a one-to-one meeting to discuss the findings. Similar to 360 feedback, we also have surveys. So again, it's the building of questionnaires to be sent out to our staff, but not about our staff. It's about other things. So under surveys, one of my examples would be that I'm sending a questionnaire out about a party. So questions like, would we want it at this venue or that venue? Do we want a 3-course meal or a buffet? Black tie or informal? So we would send that out. Everyone would fill that in via the app or the desktop browser, and it allows us to go with the majority and plan the best party possible. On a more serious note, though, we've got engagement surveys. So those sorts of questions like, how do you feel working for this business? Would you recommend this business to a friend? Is there anything that we can support you with? And with that comes some really good EMPS scoring and engagement scoring. If you click Create New Survey here, there are even pre-built templates that you can use with pre-built questions in them. And we've also got pulse surveys. Again, if you click Create Pulse Survey, we've got some pre-built templates, similar sort of questions to the engagement surveys, but the benefit of pulse surveys is that we can dictate them to go out automatically over the course of a particular date range. So maybe we want a report to go out quarterly that we want people to fill in, and then that'll allow us to compare the results of those questionnaires throughout the course of the year and seeing if there's been any improvement or decline in the scoring. The final part of performance that we haven't looked at yet is the quick feedback. So if I go up to the quick links option at the top and down to quick feedback, I can either give praise to anybody in the company very quickly by just selecting their name, a topic and add some comments in, or I can ask for someone. That'll be attached to their record or my record, whoever it's about, and that can be pulled into your one-to-one meeting if you wish. So again, that is the performance module. The next part that we're going to be looking at, the timesheets module. So the timesheets module in Sage HR is a cloud-based method of allowing your employees to enter their working hours onto a timesheet. So employees will be able to use timesheets to adjust their hours worked, submit that to their manager for approval, and that can be done either via the browser or the mobile app, and then reported on to help payroll pay your employees. So again, time for a little module demonstration. So let's go back into Sage HR and straight on the left-hand side to the timesheet section. Now, as a manager, I get a slightly different view. I can view all the people that I'm approving timesheets for. If I was just an employee, I would log in and only see my own timesheet. Now, these timesheets can be left blank for your staff to fill in, or we can get them pre-filled like this on screen based upon their working pattern. Ultimately, the employees can click log in and manually input their start time, finish time, break length, and this will total their hours up, compare it to any contracted hours if you're tracking overtime, for example. And when you're happy, that will be submitted to your manager. They'll receive an email and a task on their dashboard. They can check it over. If they're not happy, they could either edit them themselves or decline it and send it back to the employee for change. Or if they're happy, just approve it straight away. If I went back to a previous week, you can see Annie has a green dot above her tile there. That indicates that we have already approved her timesheet. Bill has an amber dot, meaning that it has been submitted but not yet approved. And anyone without a coloured dot, we are still waiting on their timesheets being submitted. So once these have been approved and submitted and approved, obviously they can then be reported on. So we can go down to the main report section. And then in the grey bar, down to timesheet reports. We can see things like any outstanding timesheet statuses that are awaiting approval. We can total up any hours, any overtime, and then again, that can be exported into Excel for the purposes of helping with payroll. Now, if I go back to the timesheet section, we also have a little clocking in function. So if enabled, the employees will be able to log into the desktop browser and from their dashboard, click a button to clock in and clock out at the end of the day. Or if they're doing it via the mobile app, they can swipe left to clock out, right to clock in. If you're not so bothered about start and end times and you just want to register how many hours have been allocated to a particular project, we can do that from the project timesheets option. So again, as a manager, I can see multiple staff. If I open up one of my employees, they have a couple of different projects here. One of them is locked down because the date range for that particular project is closed. But anything that's open, they can simply come in and allocate a certain number of hours in a day that they have worked against a particular project. Much like the timesheets, that would be saved and submitted to their manager for approval. And again, the manager can approve, and we can then report on that for the purposes of payroll or project costing. So that's our timesheets module. We'll now look at the scheduling module. So the shift scheduling module in Sage HR allows you to use interactive and digital shift planning. You can simply create and edit shifts, then notify your employees with a click of a button. Everyone has access to the schedules from the web as well as the mobile app, and employees can advise of their availability and add their preferred times when they can or cannot work. So again, back into the program, and we'll take a look at scheduling. So from the left-hand toolbar, we come down to scheduling. So here I am as a manager and I can build this out. We have our rota on a weekly basis, but that can be done by 2 weeks or a month. To start adding shifts in, we hover over an employee and a day, click on the little plus, and we can either create a brand new shift on the fly, or we can pick from a pre-existing template that's built in the settings area. You can even drag these around from people to people, or if you hit the shift button, you can copy and paste that from day to day. So a really quick way of building that shift. At the moment, they're in a pastel color, and that signifies that they've not yet been published and made available to the employees. So when you're ready to do that, click Publish at the top, decide which teams you'd like to publish these to, and click Publish. That'll send an email to your employees and make the shifts available via both email and on the mobile app for them to see when they need to be working. If you're then having to build future weeks, to save you having to build the whole thing from scratch again, we can even use this More option at the top and copy a schedule to either just the next week or any number of weeks in the future. If you needed to start from scratch, rather than having to go in and delete every item one by one, we can also just clear that down by using Clear Schedule. So it's just like a rota, published out to the employees, built by the manager, and accessible via the mobile app. So that's the scheduling module. We can now take a look at the expenses module. So employees will be able to submit personal expenses by simply taking a photo of that receipt directly from the Sage HR mobile app and uploading that from there. Alternatively, they can log into the browser, scan it in, and upload it that way. So expense management covers everything from approved business purchases right through to reimbursement for spending on the job. So once more, let's jump back into the HR system and take a little look at expenses. Now to do this, we're going to jump into an employee's record. So we'll use Annie again, and I'll search for a name at the top left. In Annie's record, we can scroll down to expenses, and we can see 4 areas here. We can see anything that's not yet been submitted, anything awaiting approval, anything awaiting payment, and all previous expenses submitted. Now, if Annie wanted to upload an expense from the web browser, she would come here and click Add Expense. She would fill in a date, what she was claiming for, an amount, currency, how it was paid for, and if she wished and it was mandatory, an attachment. Once added, that'll add to the unsubmitted list, and she can add as many as she likes over a particular date range. When she's happy, she can select them all and submit those to her manager for approval. They'll then sit in the awaiting approval list, where the manager could come in, check the amount, check the receipts, and when happy, approve. Once approved, they'll sit in the awaiting payment option to be paid externally from the HR system. That might happen at the end of the month or at a later date, and once that's been done, you'll need to come back in and click Pay Out to mark it as paid and move it to the completed list. So it's just a very basic way of employees being able to log expenses on the go and have those approved by their manager remotely. So that's the expense module. We'll now take a look at our last module, the recruitment module. So this is our end-to-end recruitment software, and it should help accelerate the recruitment process with things like automated tracking, on-demand applicant screening, easily accessible data, advanced analytics, and applicant reporting. You can also make your company stand out and attract top talent with unique landing pages with your logo on to focus on specific campaigns and promote new job openings. So for the last time, let's jump back into the system, and down the very, very left-hand side is our recruitment module. So as a recruitment admin, we can see various things like a list of open positions, a list of any applicants that are currently applying for roles. We have a shared calendar, a shared inbox, a list of any outstanding tasks, any requisitions that have been put in from external managers if they're looking to fill a role, and of course our reporting section. So here I have a list of open positions at the moment. If I was going to create a new position, I just click Add Position, and I need to work through all these tabs down the left-hand side. So one at a time, we start with the Job Information tab, including things like the job title, the team, when we need to fill it by, how many positions there are, and the priority. And we can then start entering custom text under our fields. Now we've given you 3 here called description, requirements, and benefits, but you can delete these and add your own blocks, call them what you like, and enter any customized text in there. And that's what will appear on the job ad page. We then move on to building the application form, which is what we want people to fill in. So we've got things like first name, last name, email. We can make these mandatory or not. We can add additional custom fields that we would like them to fill in. And we can also provide them with boxes to upload documents. We've called one CV, but again, you can add your own. You'll then be offered to pick a pipeline. Now you can customize these stages of the pipeline, and this includes the journey right through from applying all the way to hiring and everything in between. So you customize which stages are going to be a part of this particular position, and then move on to the scorecard. Now you don't have to use these features, but the scorecard will be helpful if you want to rate your applicants. Now you can rate them on general feeling or perhaps a particular stage of the pipeline, and those scorecards can be pre-built in the settings area. So if I add a generic scorecard in here, we can ask certain questions and rate on things like personal feeling. Do we feel they were open? Did we feel they were honest and well behaved? And things like that. Again, another optional feature is the option of practical tasks. So if part of the application process was maybe that we needed them to do and prepare a presentation, we could include that as a pre-built template from the settings area, or create it on the fly and ask them to prepare something straight away. We can allocate a hiring team, so who are going to be the hiring managers and the interviewers involved with this particular position. We can customize any automated outgoing emails. So again, these are built in the settings area. But for example, if we enable the thank you email, we can have an email that will automatically go out every time somebody applies for the role to say, thank you for applying for this role with our company. We'll review your application and get back to you if you are successful. So that'll happen automatically as soon as anybody applies for the role. Finally, we've got the visibility option. So maybe we want to leave it as a draft and not visible to anybody just yet. We can make that visible internally so that it's only available on people's dashboards that work for the business, or once we click published, we can make that available outside of the business. Once you've then added the position, that will be added to your list. So if we go into one of my pre-existing positions here, my role for team manager, the first thing that we see on screen is each of the stages of the pipeline. I can also see any applicants that are at each stage of that pipeline and go into their records by clicking on them. So once we click on an applicant, we see more information about them, any documents that they uploaded. We can see an audit trail, add any commentary, fill in our scorecards, check on the practical task and send one from here. We can also send emails directly to the applicant from here, so each record has its own unique mailbox. We can move them forward to the next stage of the pipeline or any future stages. We can also completely delete them or edit them from here as well. If the applicant was completely inappropriate for the role or for the company, we disqualify them, and this is also where we will schedule interviews from. If we close that pipeline, obviously the easiest way to move people through is just by simply grabbing, dragging, and dropping them. So we manage these applicants throughout the course of this process. When they're in the hired option, we can click hire, and that'll move them into our main HR portal as a current employee. Now, the one thing I do want to show you here is that once it is published, we have what's called an application page. So this is where the employees or applicants, will land once they've found the job ad. Now, you can customize this page yourselves. So we can have things like the role, the logo. Here's the job description, the requirements and the benefits that we filled in earlier. The fields that we want them to fill in. The files that we want them to upload. And they also agree to the terms and conditions and click apply. On the right-hand side, we can show any other jobs available at the business, sharing options, and we can also refer a friend. Now, once the applicant applies for the role, they'll then automatically appear in our payroll program as an applicant, and we can start moving them through the pipeline. If a similar role comes up in the future, we can duplicate that instead of having to build the whole thing from scratch, and that'll again be added to the positions list. Another handy feature within the recruitment module is that we can create not just positions, but also pools. So for example, if there are some candidates who weren't quite right for this particular job, but maybe you'd like to keep their information for future, in case another job comes up, we can create that here as a pool, and that'll house any of our previous applicants that we might then want to bring back into a particular position that opens at a later date. So there's our list of positions. That's how we go into them. And then that application page there will provide you with a URL that you can take to any page. So you could put that URL onto your own careers page and embed that into a little apply here button so that when they click on that button, they land on our application page. So what we want to try and encourage them to do is fill in our application page, which will automatically feed them directly into your Sage HR program. So that again is the final module that we were going to take a look at, the recruitment module. If we just snip back to the slides, what are the next steps? So you'll soon receive a follow-up email automatically with an attached recording of the demonstration. So feel free to watch it back as many times as you need. You'll also receive a further email advising how to sign up to Sage HR. And in addition, our customer success managers will normally be in touch within the next 48 hours or so to see if you need any further support. You'll then also have access to optional free one-to-one help. Now, this is really good because you'll be able to talk to one of our onboarding experts, and it's vitally important for us to help you set up, as we'll help you upload all the employees into the software and answer any questions that you may have about getting started. So where do you start? Well, you'll first need to set up and create your Sage HR account. Once you've done that, the next step is to populate your employee data into Sage HR. You can then create things like those custom fields to capture any of the data that we haven't provided you with. And finally, be proud of your brand. You can upload your company logo into Sage HR so that when you're an employee logging in, they see all of your branding on things like the welcome emails and in the top left corner. And it just makes it a lot more personal to you rather than Sage. Thank you for your time today and enjoy the rest of your day.